warm welcome to all of you from Embassy of India and PP Koila and the Nepal Foundation in this 17th edition of Voices. To bring to the Nepalese audience the young, talented and inspiring who's who of the Nepali society, Indian Embassy and PP Koila and the Nepal Foundation jointly initiated the Voices series 17 months ago. And in these 17 months, we have brought before you dynamic and inspiring professionals of Nepal from fields such as art, culture, media, fashion, photography, business, sports, and cinema. We thank all of you for having faith in our initiatives and being with us in all our editions. In this 17th edition of Voices, we bring to you one of the most celebrated actors of Nepal, somebody all age group of Nepal is familiar to. The person who has restlessly contributed commercially successful films to Nepali silver screen, somebody who has contributed largely in defining and shaping the Nepali film industry. Somebody who has won hearts of millions across Nepal and elsewhere. More popularly known as the Mahanayak of the Nepali film industry. Please put your hands together for Rajesh. Many may not be aware of this, that Rajesh Hamal started his career as a model in India during his college days. In 1988, he debuted in Nepali cinema through the movie Yug Dekhi Yug Sama, and ever since then, Rajesh Hamal carries a yug of Nepali film fraternity along with him, with almost 300 films to his credit. Today, he will share with us his entire journey to this day, the bumpy rides he had to travel during his film career, about Nepali film industry and more. This session will roughly continue to 40 minutes, and at the end, Rajesh Hamal will answer to some of the questions from the audience. Please enjoy the evening.
Good afternoon. Hello. Good afternoon, everybody. You know, it's after being in a profession for 25 years, when you're invited for a talk like this, you really don't know where to begin from. But nevertheless, I'm going to start from somewhere. And everything is going to be impromptu. I just have come here to speak about my personal experiences, and like Hamal said, about my challenges, my ups and downs, not just only in my profession, but in life in general as well. And how did I overcome them? And how did I just move on despite various other things? What you would probably gain from my talk is, more than anything else, I would say it would be a journey that was possible because of persistency, because of consistency, because of passion, because of I really wanted to make things work for me, doing the things that I was passionate about. So basically, for a layperson or a person who's not too much interested in cinema, or even for people who haven't really followed my profession, what they could take away from today's conversation is something on that line. How you can actually make your passion work for you, even if you don't see any chances of really making it. Even if you don't see that the path in front of you is carved well and nicely. As a child, I would say that my upbringing was a little bit unusual in a sense that we like to say that we are from Palpa. I consider myself a Palpali because I was born there, but unfortunately I have not been able to live in Palpa as long as I would have wanted to. I was born there, and when I was about less than 6 months old, my mother, she carried me over to Kathmandu, and I really didn't get a chance to go back to Palpa after that. And that is also because my father, he shifted to Kathmandu and he started working in foreign ministry, and that's how our family's life was shaped after that. But initially, both my parents are from Palpa. My father used to study in Banaras University. My mother, also a very progressive woman for those days. She was studying in a college in Lucknow, a very strict college, all Muslim college. And And I would say that my parents were a little bit progressive for their time and age, because theirs was a love marriage. Somewhere on the journey back home, my father coming home from Banaras and my mother coming home from Lucknow, they met somewhere on the way, maybe on a train station or a train, and sort of had a glance at each other and fell in love. And then my father I'm going to use this word, he was very persistent to follow my mother, and she was in a very strict college in Lucknow, and it was so strict that when you get admitted to that college, my mother actually had to tell the office from whom she's going to expect a letter for throughout the year. And only those letters were allowed which the name she has mentioned in the office. And of course she had mentioned her uncle's name, and she had mentioned her cousin's name. And luckily what happened was my father befriended the cousin, who was a male, and he started writing love letter in the name of that cousin to my mother. And I know that because I happen to have those letters, and I only got them after my mother expired, which was about 10 years ago. So the secret was revealed only 10 years ago to me. So that's how their affair started, and then they got married, and my father was, at the age of 22, he has done his master's in political science from Banaras Hindu University. And then he shifted to Palpa after his university, and then he became principal of the first school in Palpa at the age of 22. I keep on telling my friends, my father's lifestyle and mine contradicts so much, because when my father was a principal at the age of 22, he always wanted to look mature. He always wanted to look more than his age, because he was 22 and he was a principal, so he did not want to look underage for his students, or he doesn't want to look one of the students. And here I am. No matter how old I am, I still want to look young. I still say that. The last time I counted was I was 25, and I stopped counting after that. So, kind of a contradictory outlook in life. My father wanted to mature much before his age, and I never want to mature. I never want to grow old. I want to be young forever. I keep on telling friends, that Rajesh, Hamal will go to Puro. So that's how my father began. He began as a principal in a first high school in Palpa. But then later on, he sort of wanted to change his profession. Then he came to Kathmandu, and when I was about less than a year, he joined Foreign Service here, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And after that, he started getting his posting in various countries, and that's how I grew up. So during my growing up days, by the time I finished my school, I must have gone to maybe 6 to 8 different schools in maybe as many countries. So that's how I grew up, and that's one of the reasons why I say that my childhood was a little bit unusual than your normal childhood. My father's first posting, fortunately or unfortunately, his first posting as a foreign officer, and his last posting was in Pakistan. He was posted in Pakistan. Those days, Karachi used to be the capital of Pakistan, and his posting as a junior officer in the embassy was in Karachi when I was about 2 years old. And then unfortunately his last appointment was also in Pakistan, where he expired about 15 years ago as a Nepali ambassador to Pakistan. But then he also spent a lot of time in India. Actually, matter of fact, right after Pakistan, usually what happens in the foreign ministry here is that you get one posting, then you come back home, and then you go to another one. But what happened with him was he got a posting in Karachi, and then right after Karachi, living there for about less than 2 years, he got his assignment shifted to New Delhi straight away. So after living less than 2 years in Pakistan, the whole family shifted from Karachi to New Delhi, in the Nepal embassy in New Delhi. So my schooling, official schooling, I had already started my kindergarten in Karachi, but my official schooling started in New Delhi in a school called International School. And I must tell you that as a child I was quite mischievous. I was mischievous in a sense that I was a very harmless kind of a mischievous guy. I always had a love and hate relationship with my guardians, with my parents, irrespective of who, you know, like they used to love me and they used to also hate me because I was so mischievous. If I wasn't around, they would miss me. If I'm around, they would say, "Ah, so I used to do all sort of mischievous things. You know, I was a very curious person as a child. I was curious on everything. I loved traveling, and right from childhood, I remember that I loved meeting people. I loved interacting with people. That was one of my passion. And one of the mischievous things that I did while I was living in Delhi was that one day before I went to my school, I saw what I know now is 100 rupees note on a dining table. And for a child who was in a first grade, that note looked extremely big because I probably never saw more than a 1 rupee coin or anything. But then I saw this 100 rupees note lying on a dining table, and I was curious, what was it? I mean, if it is money, it must be a hell of a lot of money, you know, which is going to buy me a lot of ice creams and balloons and things like that. So before my father actually took me to school, I just took that money and put it in my pocket. And I went to school. And when I was attending class, I was always fidgety and very anxious and anxiety. You know, I was full of anxiety, wanting to know what kind of money do I have in my pocket. You know, throughout the class, I wanted to know, but I dare not take it out in the class and look at it. So every 10 minutes, I used to ask permission to go to the toilet. And I used to tell them, I said, I need to go to the toilet. And then I said, okay. And then I used to go to the toilet, shut the door, take the money out of my pocket, and I used to look at it. You know, I said, this is a huge money. What am I going to do with it? And then I did that for several times, and my teacher was wondering if I had any problem with my stomach or anything else. I said, I'm all right. But then, at the end of the day, when I got home, I got so nervous that I didn't want to keep that money. So what I did was, the first thing that I did when I got home was I made sure that there was no one in the dining room, and when I finally found myself isolated in the dining room, I took that 100 rupees note and put it where I picked it from, you know. And then for my mother, it was a magic because the whole day she was looking for it. She didn't see it on the table. And once I'm back here, she says, where did this money come from? You know, it just appeared there on the table on its own. But then finally she did come to know. And so those are the kind of mischievous things that I used to do. And that's how I, spend my early school days. And then my middle school, I came to Kathmandu. I did my middle school in St. Javiers here. Went there for about 2 years. And after that, my father was again posted to Europe. He was transferred to Moscow, and we went there and lived for almost 4 and 5 years. And I think my interest towards cinema and arts was enrooted in while we were living in Russia, in Moscow, I think, because it is, even though the system in Russia was very different from most of the places that we had experienced, because it was hardcore communism those days, and living in a communist country has its advantages and disadvantages. Abhijit probably knows that. When you were there, was Russia communist? No, it wasn't. Okay, but yeah, when I was there, it was hardcore communism. So it has its advantages and it has its disadvantages as well. But then, for a person who's attracted to his arts and cinema, Russia is probably one of the places where you can really devour a lot of artistic things and cinematic things. And it's, I would say, it's on a different level from many other places. Especially cinema in Russia is more intended to be more realistic, if there is such thing as realistic cinema, because I am of the opinion that there is no such thing as realistic art, because once you take real thing into the art form, it goes into another dimension. It ceases to exist as reality. So I really don't think there's such thing as reality cinema or reality photography, because once you take it to another dimension, it becomes art. But then, as it can be, as close to life as it can be, Russian cinemas were very close to life. And I grew up watching those kinds of cinema. Cinema which portrayed the realistic things that was happening around you, which you could identify with. you could identify with the spirit, with the emotions, with the happenings and the thought process that was going on, because it was something that you would also probably experience in your day-to-day life. Something that you would experience in a physical capacity, in a tangible way, and also something that you could experience on a mental level, on an intellectual level. You know, so right from the childhood, I was sort of like fed on those kind of cinemas. So I grew up watching those cinemas, and my fascination for cinema grew from those kind of cinema. But ironically, when I started my career in the film, I started off with hardcore commercial films with a lot of illusions and drama. Now that's an irony and a contradiction, but I'll get to that a little later. But in my home, even though, you know, like I was, even though I was attracted to his arts and cinema, there was not much of a discussion on arts and cinema as such in my house. My parents are of those times, like I would say they're very progressive for their time, but nevertheless they did have some conventional views when it came to what they expected from their children. You know? And the conventional view of those days is that you want your children to do something which is secure, safe, life-worthy, which is consistent, which takes you to a certain place, and where you have a certain kind of life, where you can make a certain kind of life, certain kind of position in the society. So my parents were no different. You know, they thought on those lines as well when it came to children. Matter of fact, you know, we are 5 siblings. I have 2 elder sisters above me. They're twins, and it's me and my brother and younger sister. Matter of fact, what happened was that my father started calling my elder sisters, who are twins, both doctors by the time they were less than 2 years old. So my elder sisters' names are Rita and Rekha. By the time they were 2 years old, they were known as Dr. Rita and Dr. Rekha. So that's how conventional they were. You know, they wanted their children to be either doctors or engineers or administrator, or, you know, at the most maybe someone working in the UN or Foreign Service, you know, on those lines. So as I grew up, I started to feel that somewhat I was not so cut out to do your cookie cutter things, you know, the regular things. Somewhere inside me I could feel that I had this contempt for your regular life and regular thinking. I mean, I did not know why, and I dare not discuss it with anyone for the fear of thinking that maybe I would be considered foolish or abnormal. But now when I look back, I can trace that emotion. I can trace that spirit in me that I actually did have contempt for your regular life. You know, regular life meaning that you finish your study, you get into a job, you take a 9-to-5 job, you progress in life, you know, you have a wife and you have the children, you grow them up. Somehow, now when I look back, I think I had this kind of a rebellious nature towards that right from the beginning. I didn't know then. I dare not discuss it then. I didn't know what it was, but I could sense it. That my thoughts were not on the same track with lots of people who were at least living around me or being around me, you know? Now when I look back, I can say for sure that it was probably a rebellious nature, rebellion for not wanting to do a regular thing, rebellion for your, I'm not just talking professionally, but even in leading a life, you know? That's probably one of the reasons why I just got married 3 months ago. That could be a reason too. There was some kind of a secret contempt, you know, there's some kind of a rebellion for your normal, regular life. But then, as I grew up and I went to college, I began to realize that that was growing more. And again, like I said, I dare not discuss it. And those are the things at that stage in my life would have probably tremendously helped if I had an atmosphere at home to discuss my nature. But what I thought that was that my home environment did not allow me to express freely the real feelings I had towards life, towards the things that I wanted to do, because I thought that my parents, people around me were thinking in a very conventional way, and I was to do what was expected of me to do. I was to do what was expected of me to do by my parents, by my teachers, by the people around me, and somehow I was not able to connect with that expectation. So I could say that as a person in a college, there was a lot of frustration and inner turmoil in me, you know, with the kind of expectations I had around me and the kind of things that I wanted to do as a person on my own. But I dare not discuss it because here was my father who said that all the girls should be doctors and all the guys should be engineers or administrators or whatnot, or lawyers. But towards the end of my college days, you know, after I graduated, I did my college from Chandigarh in DAV College. And after college, I sensed that I was more and more attracted towards the medium of cinema. Now, when I say medium of cinema, I mean the cinema as a whole. I would not say that I was persisting only on doing cinema as an actor, but the cinema as a medium attracted me because I thought it was a very powerful medium. A medium where you can attract people, where people who watch it, they know it's an illusion, they know it's drama, you know, they know it's fake, yet they flow with the spirit and emotions and the events and the issues that are shown in the cinema for the duration of the cinema. They get so involved. If it's a really good cinema, people get so involved that they can have their outlooks changed, they can have their perspective changed, they can form an opinion after watching a really good cinema. So I thought cinema had this tremendous power of influencing people in a normal, ordinary way. I mean, not every cinema professes you to do extraordinary things or talks about, you know, extraordinary things on various issues and subjects. Sometimes it can just portray a mundane things that is happening in the life, real day-to-day small little things. But just by watching it, people get so moved, people get so attracted, people get so involved that it changes their outlook and perspective. So I thought it was a very, very powerful media, and I thought that this is what I want to do. This is the place where I could actually express. Because most of my college days, I thought that I had gone through my adolescence age without really being able to express myself 100%. You know? And I thought this medium is a medium where I didn't have to gather people, or I just didn't have to expect my father to come and talk to me, or my mother to come and talk to me. I could actually express my feelings and things in a mass level. And if I can do it successfully. So it was also for the desire of wanting to express myself, you know, desire to express my emotion, my spirit, things that I was not able to do it. Because as an actor, what I realized is one of the greatest quality that the actor banks on, that he relies upon, is the capacity to empathize. You know, the way an actor is able to empathize is his strongest point. Now, when I'm saying empathizing, I'm saying the way he's able to put himself into the perspective or the shoes of the other instant. Like if I have to do a role of a starving person, I really don't have to starve. But as an actor, I have this capacity to empathize with that person so instantly that I can really feel the way he is feeling. Or if I have to do a person who is really downtrodden or who is going through some challenges in life, I don't have to face the similar challenges. But as an actor, if you have that capacity to empathize with people's emotions, people's problems, people's challenges, irrespective of the background they come from, irrespective of the strata of society they come from, if you have that capacity, then you can instantly do that. So I thought that was another great asset as an actor that I had. And then that would only enhance in my line of communication to reach out to people. Because I just did not want to see things from one perspective. I wanted to see things from other people's perspective, other people's views as well. And that's one of the reasons why I ended up doing so many films that was actually targeted for the mass consumption. because I wanted the lay person, whether they're living in the Himalayan region, the Tarai, the east or west, I wanted them, the ordinary lay person in Nepal, in this society, I wanted them to somehow identify with the character that I was doing. I wanted them to see themselves in the character that I was doing. And that, as an actor, fulfilled me so much. Because I was able not only to express my feelings, but because of the empathy that I had towards the society that I was living in, I was able to express other people's feelings as well. So some of the most, the greatest accolades, the praise that I've had is that once when I was, about 10, 15 years ago, I was very closely associated with the street children in Tamil. And those were the days when I was doing various characters, various challenging characters of various strata of Nepali societies, And most of my characters were downtrodden, your lay person who's rebellious, who's angry with the system, who is fighting for the right cause, who does not want to take things sitting down. And somehow I, directly or indirectly, became the voice of your common person on the street. Somehow they said that they saw, when I was talking in the screen, they saw that this is what they would like to say as well. And they saw their voice in my voice, and they saw their actions in my action, and they were able to relate to it. So I did a lot of those kind of roles. So when I was in Tamil, I was befriending with the street kids, and one day I decided to take them all to have an ice cream. It was a safer days those days, so I used to put all these street kids in my car and take them out for the ice cream. And suddenly one of the street kids in the car said, "You know why Rajesh Hamal loves us so much? Because he's also Kate." We've seen him in his films, he's a Kate, so he was also once upon a time Kate, so that's why he likes us. And I thought that was an excellent praise. And I actually wanted to thank him. And there was another incident. I did a film called Bharia. Bharia is a porter. And I was in Chitwan for the premiere of this film, and I was in this movie theater, and it was really, really crowded. There were a lot of audiences who had come there to see the film and to meet me as well. And then I was in my car, and there was a lot of people surrounding the car, and all of a sudden there was this guy who obviously was a Bharia because he had this namla on his hand, and he was also, his demeanor looked like a Bharia. And then he just, slowly just started separating the crowd in front of me, and he just edged his way towards me, and he finally made it to me, and then he took my hand, and he shook my hand, and he said, to portray a character like that, you must be one of us. He said, you must be one of us. You have portrayed us so realistically. You have spoken our emotions so much. You must be one of us. And I thought that was a nice praise coming to an actor from your audience. So those are more than the other accolades that I get, nationally or internationally or in various forms. Those are the accolades that I hold closer to my heart, because they are really spoken from their heart, and they are spoken by the people that I was actually having in mind while I was doing my work. They were the people that I was having in my mind while I was doing my work. And when these people come and they say that they find it so good, they find it so moving, they find it so connected with the character that I was doing, I thought that was a praise. But then when I started my journey in this profession, it wasn't really, really easy, because when I started off a film career 25 years ago, there was hardly a film fraternity as such in Nepal. 25 years ago, we were making about maybe 2 films in 1 year or 3 films in 1 year. And that was the time when I got into Nepali films. But before I got into here, I was, of course, like Raj said, I was working as a model in India because that's where I graduated and my parents were also there. And when I had this attraction to the cinema medium and I wanted to do something in cinema, I did not know where to start off from, because in Nepal we were only making about 2 films, 3 films in 2 years. And I was living in India and I was doing modeling, and a lot of people in India thought modeling was a stepping stone to cinema, so that would be a gradual transition there itself. And I never thought about doing films in Nepal, because I thought the profession itself did not exist here, and people got into cinema surely out of hobby, for something that they did it on the sideline, but they did something else for life. But then when I was here 25 years ago, I was fortunate enough. I have an uncle who expired 3 or 4 years ago. He had done his direction in Russia, and he was on the verge of starting a film. And coincidentally, I happened to be here in Kathmandu during my holidays from India. And then we met, and he said that he's going to do a film, and whether I would want to do it if I was interested. If I had about 45 days, he would be interested in taking me into that film. And out of the lark, I said, why not? Because I was going through really rough times those days. Because there was something that I did in my university, and there was something else, entirely something else that I wanted to do, and the parents were not really agreeing with the way I was taking my life forward, because they thought that I should not be doing what I really want to do, but I should be doing what I'm trained to do. So there was a bit of a conflict at home, and there was a lot of confusion in me where to begin from. Because even after being 25 years in the film, I still don't know how does one start being in a film. It's not like your other jobs where you apply and you give an interview and come in. You really don't know how to begin working in a film. So I was going through all this confusion. I was here, and there was this uncle. He had done his direction. He wanted to make a film, and he said, do you have 45 days? Would you like to do a film? And I said, okay, why not? So just out of the lark, I thought this would be nice for my profile. If I want to move on somewhere or something, at least I can start off by saying that I have this experience. I've done one film. So we decided to do the film. But unfortunately, that film did not work. So officially, that was not my first film. So my first step was a big fall. I tripped on my first step. I was not able to continue. We went to shoot for that film. They shot with us for about 10 days, and then finally the director decided that I was not good enough for the film. And that film was not my official first film. That was the film called Bhagya Rekha. I did that film. I shot for about 10, 12 days. I was pretty excited. But then after some time, the director came over and said that we don't want you to continue with this film. We want to change the lead actor and lead actress, and we want to finish this film with someone else. So that was quite a setback. And of course, my parents were totally disappointed. And they said, "I'm little bane gaye the." You chatra mein na lagnu matlab bane gaye the. Dekh iske baad. So they had a big reason not to boost me anymore. But again, being young is such an energy. When you are a young person, if you have a certain amount of confidence, and if you have a certain amount of passion, you can afford to make mistakes, I realize that. As you grow older, you're more sensitive to making mistakes. So as you grow older, you intend not to make as many mistakes because you're too sensitive to your mistakes. But as a younger person, sometimes your mistakes just rebound. It bounces off much more easily. As you grow up, at least I realized that, as I grow up, when I do mistakes, I'm more sensitive towards. So those days, I just took it as a lesson. I did not take it as seriously as for example, my parents did. My parents said, okay, this guy cannot do anything in film because he had a chance and he could not move forward. But deep down inside, I had confidence about what I wanted to do. I was still confident in my craft and my art and in myself because I was the one who was going through all those experiences. I may not have been able to discuss that with him, may not have been able to express that to him, but inwardly, I was not hesitant. I had not lost all hope. And I was not saying that, oh God, I faced a failure, now I cannot move forward. I said no. So that's where the persistence comes in. I was very persistent, and one has to be persistent. So I still told my father that this is what I want to do, and I want a second chance. And I don't take this as a mistake, I only take this as a lesson. And thank God I was wise enough to say that to him. I told him, this is not my mistake. This is the lesson that I've learned. Your galti hai na, your life part ho. or your partner or Mositsu, and I'll be much more prepared to how to move forward. But then he said, what are you going to do for a living? You've already gone through your university, you had an opportunity to do something that you really want to do and you failed, so you want to try again and just waste your time and waste your life? What are you going to do for life then?